Been with us for, what, 20 hours now. And it started under such different circumstances. So I would give me a cheeseburger, and he says, no hamburgers. I said, no hamburgers? He says, no hamburgers delivered today. All deliveries have stopped. I said, what do you have? And he had some soup and a salad, and that was it. But that's a minor incident. There are no signs of serious shortages. However, if the tunnels and bridges are kept close to general delivery by trucks of foods, then in a day or two, you could have shortages. However, I would imagine, nobody said this officially, that by the end of business of this day, I think city officials will want to get traffic moving again, commerce moving again, and supplies coming into Manhattan, which after all is an island with only a few bridges across the East River and a couple of tunnels and a bridge across the Hudson here. This is an island, and the drawbridges have been drawn up.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki were saying yesterday, they want calm on the streets, but I think they also want a show of faith in their administration, and a show of faith in the firefighters and the police officers who are responding, the National Guardsmen and women who are going to be responding and on the street corners. New Yorkers seem to have risen to the occasion. I haven't heard much about looting or crime going on.
No, we said that before. I just mentioned that the fact is that there is no reports of looting of any sort, and certainly the opportunities were there in Lower Manhattan. Businesses were being closed, the merchants were racing away to save themselves, owners of shops just as everybody else was today. But we've had no indication of that, and again, people take great pride in that. I think what people are going to be doing here, as those across the nation and around the world watching these scenes right now, these big earth-moving machines are going to work down there in Lower Manhattan, is to really spend this Wednesday, as many as possible, at home. Yes, trying to find out what's happened to friends or relatives who might have been trapped in the trade towers, the two towers, and the third building which collapsed next door to it. And just pray and hope for the best. That's the spirit. That's not New York spirit alone. That's human spirit.
The human spirit, absolutely, under trying times. Thank you so much. There, a live picture now as the sun gets ready to break over the skies of New York. The skyline itself radically changed from yesterday. A gaping hole in that skyline as the twin towers of the World Trade Center no longer standing.
Yeah, the morning after this horrible tragedy, perhaps thousands dead, and you see the sky over Manhattan starting to lighten up now as sunrise is almost upon us.
And now live pictures of the streets of Manhattan there, just a glimpse of the devastation illuminated by some of the lights set up for the rescue operation. You saw in the lower right-hand corner there a helicopter scanning the scene. And you can't see, though, but hundreds of rescue workers there digging through, trying to save lives, if anyone has even survived.
Yeah, working tirelessly through the night. You can see now what awaits Manhattan this morning, the day after the horror. Garrett Gutley.
And this new day, this Wednesday in September, what kind of a day is it going to be? Well, if you look at the weather forecast in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to be another beautiful day as far as the weather is concerned, just like yesterday. Sunny, a few clouds in the sky, high of 77 degrees. But that's only the weather corner. Here is the front page. Once again, let's go through the papers and just...
Center once stood, and you can see that dawn is breaking in New York City, and those New Yorkers, tough as they are, will come face to face with the devastation that was Tuesday. For some, we saw it on videotape here and around the world, but for the New Yorkers, it is all too real.
And Vince, take a look at this shot. This really gives you perspective and some context of the damage. In this next shot, I hope we can bring it up. It is, there it is, a wide shot of the damage and devastation. We are talking about two twin towers, more than 100 stories high. You know, potentially as many as 100,000 people could have been caught in that wreckage. You can still see the fire burning in the distance in the, close to the upper left-hand corner there. This is being called the most devastating terrorist assault on U.S. soil in American history.
And people there hoping, as we are, hoping against hope that somehow, some way, miraculously, there's still some people that may have survived this.
That's right. Hundreds of people still unaccounted for, including some 300 firefighters who were there in the initial rescue operation when the first plane crashed into the North Tower. There you can see...
This amazing, the city skyline. And how it's been altered, and it just really hits home. It's incredible.
So evident, a true symbol of financial power gone now from the horizon. of New York City. And we wish those rescue workers well today. They've got a big job ahead of them and a very delicate operation should there be survivors amidst tons
Just
of rubble.
working tirelessly throughout the late evening and the night. Now we want to go to Michael Oku at St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan, and he has an update for us there.
It's been eerily quiet here in Lower Manhattan, just in front of St. Vincent's Hospital, which, as you know by now, has become the major trauma and triage center here in New York. Just to my right, you can see that there are satellite trucks stained any injury that came as a result of the attack on the World Trade Center yesterday. I'm joined here by Tom Collier, who is with the University of Miami Medical Center. And Tom has been working as a volunteer, can tell us about some of the outpouring of emotional support that you've seen.
Well, the community in New York has been unbelievable, as always. Not only the national chains of food like Duane Reade and Starbucks and that kind of thing, but the local residents, people coming in and helping out any way they can, not only in products and foods, but also in time. All night long we've had every shift covered. We're getting food to the officers and to the nurses, to the doctors. We have set up 9 coffee stations throughout the hospital just so they don't leave the area and stay with the patients, which is where they really need to be.
Can you see whether it's actually making a difference?
It's making a difference, and it's, you know, our whole thought is if we just get 2 hands free inside by doing what we're doing, then we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's what we're trying to do.
Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The hospital officials here say that they will have a press briefing at 6:30, just a little while from now, and of course we will keep you posted on that. I'm Michael Oku reporting live from Lower Manhattan.
Thank you, Michael. We want to go back to Garrick Utley, who's at the New York Bureau with a view of the skyline. Garrick, we've been hearing stories about things being reported on New York radio, something about people calling for help on their cell phones from the World Trade Center?
We've had those reports through the evening, indeed from city officials, that they have received some cell phone calls from those trapped in the rubble. Now, we're not quite clear whether it's in the rubble of the Twin Towers that came down or buildings around it where people are trapped because of debris, and also because a third building at number 7, the World Trade Center, also collapsed yesterday, late afternoon. So we're not sure where those calls are coming from, but yes, some messages have gotten through, and to the extent that the rescue effort can pinpoint where they are, they're certainly going to be going after them today.
Garrick, do you know whether they're saying how seriously they're hurt or how much danger they still feel they're in?
No, we've not heard anything since the news conference last night held by the mayor, Mayor Giuliani, and other city officials. They mentioned some of these phone calls. They're being very tight-lipped. Officials everywhere do not want to give out any information that can raise hopes too much or dash them too much. They're just waiting for events to unfold. I'm sure, though, that during the course of this day we'll be getting more information about that.
Sure. Garrick, do they think that these are credible calls?
Well, how do we know for certain? Certainly a prankster could do it. That would be the worst, the bleakest, the darkest, dirtiest joke, if you will, if anybody tried to pull that stunt. But they believe they are credible. That's what they say. They're acting on that information. How many they are, we simply don't know. We do know, of course, earlier yesterday, even before those towers collapsed in rubble here, many people employed and working in their offices in the Twin Towers were calling friends and families, describing what was happening. And we were also told that by one of our colleagues at CNN that he had learned that one man called his wife and he knew that he was trapped right at the top and he wasn't going to get out.
Well, we will continue to hear these stories. Garrick, right behind you in your shot, we can see that it is just about daybreak there.
The sun is coming up to the east, and we want to take a look at at downtown here, as you see the lower part of Manhattan and that gaping, what can we call it, void, a hole where the Twin Towers used to be. There's still a lot of dust, some smoke, but that's a mixture of dust and smoke that's in the air there, and it's probably going to continue for some time because the rescue effort itself will keep kicking up the dust.
Speaking of that, and we have some pictures of the rescue effort that's continuing right now, that would be a difficult area to access even for regular traffic, would it not, let alone trying to do some of this massive recovery that's taking place now with the heavy machinery.
When we look, you're absolutely right. When we look at downtown or lower Manhattan, we see these modern, sleek skyscrapers. It's Wall Street, the financial district. But actually, anybody who's visited realizes this is original New York City. This is where the first settlers landed. This is where George Washington was inaugurated as our first president, just a couple of blocks from those Twin Towers some 200 years ago. This is a part of town with not a grid system of streets, but tiny little streets and lanes along which they've built these giant buildings filled with hundreds and thousands of workers. So in the best of circumstances, it's a perpetual traffic jam down there. Now, of course, even with traffic and pedestrians cleared away and the people having fled, you've got to move in this giant equipment. And look at the cars that are down there. Look at the debris you've got. How do you maneuver in this space? Right there we're seeing a shot. That's along one of the broader avenues running north-south. But around the World Trade Center, that's just a catacomb, just a maze of tiny roads and streets.
Garrick, in taking a look at this shot, we get a sense also of the New York Police Department's rescue crews trying to move through that area. Are you hearing whether the rescue crews themselves are hearing the voices of people who are still alive, still trapped under there? And are they giving you a sense of how long it's going to take to get anybody out?
Well, several questions. First, no. No estimate yet as to how long it's going to take. It's going to be days and weeks. That is absolutely certain. Question number two, any survivors? Yes. The Port Authority, that's the regional government institution that runs the World Trade Centers, or ran them, runs the airports, the bridges. It reported that 3 or 4 of its security officials had been pulled out of the rubble. Presumably they're on the fringes. They heard voices. They were able to recover those men who were wounded or injured, but they're said to be, they're going to be all right. We heard an earlier report last night that the special teams that were brought in, special handlers with dogs trained to look and smell out and sniff out humans, dead or alive, were going through the rubble, and very quickly the dogs indicated they had no scent. They couldn't get any scent. They were disoriented. Why? Because of all the dust in the air. The dust was interfering with the dogs, even with their sensitive sense of smell, to do their job. Perhaps today it'll get slightly better, we don't know, but that's another obstacle that stands in the way of the rescue effort.
All right, Garrick Utley, thank you for being our guide through this madness that is now Manhattan. We'll be checking in with you periodically. Carol?
The toughest hour still ahead, Vince. Right now, let's go to Kelly Wallace. She's standing by at the White House. Kelly, question on many Americans' minds. What